Well, hi, sisters, and welcome to the Body Ally podcast. I'm going to delve into GLP-1s today. Are they actually helpful for long-term permanent weight loss? Are they actually in alignment with what I teach in being in partnership with your body? Because I teach people how to stop battling with your bodies and with food from a faith-based approach, seeing your body as the gift that God intended it to be. Do GLP-1s fit in with that landscape, or can they fit in with that? As I teach women how to pursue their health goals, not an effort to prove value, but as an act of love. So let's get into it. Hi, I'm your host, Kerrie Nygard. So here's the thing, GLP-1s are everywhere. And if you're in the health and wellness space, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got an opinion. Your neighbor's got an opinion, your grandma, your aunt, your mom, everybody's got an opinion. And it seems to be that there's not much in between ground. Either people are all for it or they're dead set against it. It's so interesting. And for the last few years, I've been listening to lots of information out there on GLP-1s. I've been curious about different applications of its use. I've been interested on the long-term effects of its use. I've been interested in any of my friends that are on it. I ask them lots of questions. I want to understand what their experience has been, why they're on it. Now, my experience was that I came to a place of peace and ease without using one of those. After my fifth baby, I had reached a place where I had so much mental brain chatter, and I did the work. I found the information. I found the mentors. I received inspiration that delivered me from all of the battling and the struggle with my body and with food. And I repaired and established that connection, that divine connection with my body. I call that divine body partnership. I went through and assessed my relationship with food. And previous to that, I had gone in and done a lot of work to fix my relationship with exercise as well. I didn't use a GLP-1. I didn't use any medication to do that. Does that mean that everyone should do it without a medication? So do they help for the long-term effects? Well, it's amazing. In one aspect, on one hand, they are amazing. Not only have people been able to be relieved from decades upon decades of obesity, but they're also, as they continue to study it, it seems to be that people who are experiencing insulin resistance, so pre-diabetes and diabetes, that when they're on a GLP-1, it seems to be, now realize that verdict is still out on a lot of the studies that are ongoing, but some of the things I've read coming out is that it seems to be thus far, is that the cells are becoming more insulin sensitive. So that it's not just causing weight loss, but that it's helping, it seems to be on some level, and verdict is not fully solidified on this yet, but it seems to be that it's retraining the cells to respond appropriately to insulin. Not only that, but it's also being studied for lots of other applications for different forms of arthritis. I was talking to a physician, actually one of my physicians, and I was asking her, because she prescribes GLP-1s, and I was asking her who she's been prescribing it to, not specifically who because of HIPAA laws, but like what has her experience been with it as a physician? And how has she seen it help or not help people? Now, this is all anecdotal. This is just my experience here. She said that she knows of people who had chronic pains in their joints, and when they were on the GLP-1s, that pain went away. She cited one particular, she didn't give me the name, but she said one of my patients stays on it as to help feel better and keep her inflammation due to arthritis at bay. I even heard of someone dealing with asthma, getting some relief from inflammatory asthma by being on a GLP-1. So no one can deny that these medications have real applications that are life-changing for people. And so there's that. It's from a study research and from the health background that I have in exercise and in nutrition. It's fascinating for me to see and realize that in my program, there are women I work with that are on GLP-1s and women who are not on GLP-1s. So I can't deny that there are real helpful things about GLP-1s. Now, in regards to the benefit that it's been used most recently for, because originally it was used for those who are diabetic, right? Well, most recently, in the last handful of years, it's been used off-label. Initially, semaglutide was used off-label, and then there was like a shortage because people were using it for weight loss, and now we have tirzepatide. So I want to talk about the mechanism through which tirzepatide, a GLP-1, how it helps people lose actual poundage. And I'm saying poundage, gravitational pull upon the earth, because it isn't just fat that they're losing, and it isn't just muscle that they're losing. Okay, so there's two ways in which this works. Number one is that it blunts the part of your brain that is the pleasure receptor. So the pleasure that you're getting from eating food, it blunts that. So the desire to continue eating for pleasure, it goes down. Also, it slows the process, the timing of the digestive emptying. Right? So what used to only the amount of food that used to satisfy you maybe for an hour now will satisfy you for 3 or 4 hours. Okay? It slows that digestive emptying. This is what causes the paralysis. So something like 1% of people who are on like a semaglutide or something like that, I think it's the semaglutide, experience the paralysis of their colon or their intestines. So that's a problem, okay? Now, it seems to be that those issues aren't as often with tirzepatide. Realize that these are based upon the things I've read. And you might be able to find other information that might counteract what I'm saying. That doesn't make one right or wrong. It means the verdict is still out. People are still gathering information and conclusions, okay? So those are the two mechanisms through which it causes people to decrease their appetite, and they don't desire to eat as much food because they're not as hungry and because they don't get as much pleasure from it. Now, there is something coming out that for some people, when they're on, it tends to happen more often when you're on a higher dose of tirzepatide. That's the more common one nowadays if you're using it off-label, that it also blunts your pleasure in regards to other things even outside of food. And so it can lead to a feeling of meh, kind of like it's a lack of excitement, maybe a low-grade feeling of apathy or a little bit of a depressed feeling. From what I'm understanding is that the way that is dealt with is that they lower the dosage, and that can improve with a dosage change. Okay, so there's definite benefits to GLP-1s. Let's talk about the cautions around it. Okay, and this is all leading up to answering the questions, do GLP-1s help with long-term weight loss? And do they fit within the scope of what I teach in viewing our bodies the way God has taught us, that they are gifts from Him and that they are our temples? Is using a GLP-1 appropriate when we view our body in the light of the reality of it being our holy vessel as we travel throughout time here on this earth? So number one, the question is, do they work for long-term weight loss? We know they work for weight loss, but do they work for long-term weight loss? And number two, does using a GLP-1 fit within the mindset, what I teach? Okay, so we're building a case here one way or the other. So we've talked about some of the benefits. We've talked about how it works. Now let's talk about some of the cautions of what can happen. So one of the things I see happening is that people will treat a GLP-1 like a diet. That I'm going to take this thing, and even with diet, I'm going to do this thing, I will shrink, and therefore I become more valuable. And this becomes a process of thinking that they're earning their worth by changing their shape. I think that's a really poor reason for having any goal in your life. I don't want to seek a health goal. I don't want to build my business. I don't want to establish any relationship based upon it allowing me to then have earned my value or validation for my acceptability or lovability. Those are terrible reasons. You exist, therefore your value is there. God decided you needed to exist, therefore you have infinite value because of who your creator is. Okay? So I think we need much better reasons for seeking out health goals. Out of gratitude and appreciation, out of a desire to experience our body differently, out of the pure enjoyment of feeling good. There's a level of enjoyment that comes from just feeling good in our bodies. I want us to reach our health goals not in an effort to prove value or to earn value, but in an effort as an act of love for our God-given body, okay? So whether you're on a GLP-1 or not, whether you're seeking out a health goal or not, what are your reasons? Are you trying to earn your acceptability, or do you have a better reason for it? So one of the cautions is that people take that same diet mentality and they start taking a pill and they start losing weight. And I've seen women who are not feeding themselves enough and they're not feeding themselves well. Women who are saying, you know, I'm going to eat a cookie and I'll feel satisfied for the next 3 or 4 hours. So they eat the cookie. And I'm not saying that cookies are wrong, but cookies in of themselves usually are not going to lead to a feeling well in your body. Okay? That nutrition requires most often a broader scope of nutrition, right? And so if you're reaching for highly processed foods, the mass majority of the time, it doesn't matter if you're taking a GLP-1 or not, your body will experience the effect of that. Our bodies are part of creation. Therefore, when we eat foods that are closest to how they come from the earth, our bodies will reflect and feel better doing so. So that's one caution, is that the diet mentality has to be resolved either way if you really truly want to reach a place of freedom. Some also, whether you're on a GLP-1 or not, for health and losing weight, you still need to stick with losing it at a rate that's healthy. Okay? So when you initially go on a GLP-1, you don't just lose fat, but you do lose muscle and you lose water or inflammation as well. We want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. Now, anyone losing fat is going to lose some muscle as well. The goal, though, is to not lose as much muscle. If you are not doing anything to create that protein synthesis, that building of the muscle when you're on a GLP-1, then you may be losing only half fat and half muscle. So let's say you start at a place where you have a high BMI and you have an average muscle mass, and realize your muscle mass is a big component of the health and vitality and longevity of your body. Has anyone noticed people who've been on GLP-1 for a long time and they seem to start losing their balance? They seem to start feeling frail. This is an effect of starvation. It's self-inflicted starvation. So whether you're on a GLP-1 or not, you still need adequate intake and adequate nutrition. So in order to maintain your muscle mass, yes, you need enough protein, but protein in of itself is not going to maintain your muscle. The protein is needed, okay, as fuel for the muscle to grow, but the muscle will not grow unless it is used. So if you only had to choose between protein intake and resistance training, weightlifting, then weightlifting is it. Now, we don't have to choose between either, and we don't have to be eating as much protein as many health influencers out there are saying. You need about 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, okay? Which, depending on how much you are, it might be around 80 grams of protein, okay, ish, up to 110, 120 grams of protein. So, or more, but within a range of many people. So do you need a good amount of protein? Yes, but you don't need 160, 200 grams of protein if you want to create the effect of building muscle. Okay? So we don't need to go crazy on the protein, and we can just do a good amount, which usually for all of us, it just creates some intentionality, but not a crazy amount of it. All right, and I teach in my program how to do this. So we want to maintain our muscle mass, because if we don't, let's say you go on let me give a hypothetical scenario, which is a scenario that I've seen play out. Okay, for other people. They go on a GLP-1, they don't have much hunger. So when they are hungry, they're like, well, let's eat the pleasure foods, the foods that taste really good. They're eating the highly processed foods, not a whole lot of them. And then pretty soon their energy starts to dip and their hair starts to thin. Why would this occur? Because you're not getting enough nutrition or intake to sustain your body. This is going to affect your thyroid. This is going to affect the level, the pace in which your body burns energy. It will slow your metabolism down. Okay. And so people say, well, they're on a GLP-1, like, oh, they're losing weight rapidly. Oh, it's fine. They're on a GLP-1. Well, if they weren't on a GLP-1 and they were losing weight that rapidly because they were hardly eating, that would signal everybody's concern, right? So do I think a GLP-1 can be used? I do, but it needs to be used as part of a whole process. Okay? When you go on a GLP-1, if it's semaglutide, within a year, if you go off cold turkey, 2/3 of the weight that was lost during that year is regained by like 90% of the people that went on it. With tirzepatide, they don't gain back as much, but they still gain a fair bit back. So if they go cold turkey. Now, for most people, if they've been obese or morbidly obese, most doctors are going to recommend, if they have prescribed a GLP-1 for weight loss, is that they go on the dosage that's the lowest dosage that will help create a sustainable, healthy loss, which is most weeks no more than 1 to 2 pounds a week. And if you're the less percentage of body fat you have, it might be half a pound to a pound a week. And if you have more body mass or more adipose tissue, it could be as much as 3 to 5 pounds, but not sustainable week after week, maybe for 1 week, because a lot of that could be fluid as well being released. So regardless, you still need to lose it in a pace that's appropriate, that's healthy for your body. You still need to be having adequate intake. And in order to do this, we don't want to crank up the dosage to as much as possible, because that is going to create the effect of essentially starvation. It's a medically induced starvation. Okay. So use the lowest dose possible to lose it at a rate that is sustainable and healthy for your body. Okay. All right. So all of that to say, can it be part of someone's journey? Yeah, I think it can. I'm not for GLP-1s and I'm not against GLP-1s. I am against using them without skill and using them within the diet mentality still. I think you have to be in the proper mindset, because here's the thing is that even if you whittle down to a long-term, what I was saying a minute ago was that many doctors, if you're morbidly obese, even if you lose the weight, they will bring you down to a maintenance dose, and that's considered a long-term dose. They don't recommend coming off it if you've been morbidly obese. And then those who aren't morbidly obese, most doctors will recommend a titrating down off of it over a period of time. Hunger does increase after you go off of it. It seems to be, complete verdict is still out on this, but that when you come off of it within a few weeks, your hunger comes up, and it seems to come up above baseline for a while before it comes back down to baseline. And so that could be one of the big drivers for why people gain weight back. The increase in appetite isn't long term, but it is increased, especially if you've been using it too aggressively. Because what happens, and we learned this from the Minnesota starvation experiment, and I've talked about that on a previous podcast, is that when you restrict calories well below, significantly below the needs of your body, when that restriction is removed, whether that's diet or whether it's famine or war induced or whatever the reason for that reduction, is that there then will be an overcompensation, a hoarding of food, a binging of food effect that will come over, that will then take hold. The same thing will happen with a pill that's creating a reduced appetite. So it needs to be used with restraint if it's going to be used, and it needs to be used in combination with doing the work to change your relationship with food, your emotional and thought, neural pathways, habits around food. If these aren't dealt with, then even if you come down to a low dose, you're still going to be dealing with the same diet mentality, with the same disordered relationship with food, with the same disordered relationship with your body. So it does not take the place of doing the work. It just doesn't take the place of it. So can it be used? Yes, it can be. In my opinion, yes, it can be used. And I do believe it's compatible when you view your body in terms of my body is a gift from God. Just like you would take any medication or prescription wisely, this could be taken wisely as well. A misuse of it is just that, a misuse of it and an abuse of your body. So if someone is going to use a GLP-1, and this is what I recommend to the women who work with me, again, use the lowest dose necessary to create the effect that you're going for, right? You still want to feel hunger. You still want to feel fullness. We don't want to lose any more than about 1 to 2 pounds a week. And even then, having a few weeks of maintenance is in my opinion, is healthy for long-term results. If you lose 30, 40, 50 pounds and you still got 30, 40, 50 more to lose, having periods of a few months in there where you just maintain for a little while, I think helps reset your body at those different points so that the long-term results are able to stick, so that you can have long-term results. Okay, so there's no shortcut. A GLP-1 is not a shortcut. It's not cheating. I hear that too. Well, if I go in, they're cheating. They're not doing the work. It can be part of the journey. I'm not saying it should be part of your journey. There's women who choose not to go on it for good reasons that are on a weight loss journey. And there's women who choose to go on it for reasons that they like. Regardless, it doesn't resolve or do the work for you of changing your relationship with food, changing your relationship with your body, looking at your thought and emotion patterns connected with your body and with food. So can it be done? Yes, but it needs to be done within the right mindset. All right, ladies, thank you so much. That's my discussion on GLP-1s. I would love to hear from you. If you're on a GLP-1, what your experience has been. I'm always asking people. I was talking to someone the other day who had just come off a GLP-1 and they were struggling with feeling so hungry. But it sounds like, and they even titrate it off. And so you still have to do the work, right? You can't skip that part. And you need to understand how these medications work and to use them with a doctor that understands that you're not just going on a GLP-1, but you're still doing the mental and emotional work around food and body. All right, ladies, thank you so much. Check the description down below. I'm starting some new live classes. The link will be in the description below. And remember, you were not put here on this earth to constantly be thinking about losing weight. You were here to thrive and to grow and fulfill God's mission for you in this life. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.